Welcome back to the Performance Injury Report. It is Monday, March 1st. I hear spring. I know we're 20 days away, but after January, after February, March just sounds better. I am joined, as always, by Dr. Mark Casimiro. What's going on, Mark?
What's up, Nick? I just think it's the thought that we're 1 month closer to May. That's when we start to get some good weather around here. So we just know that's when you hit March, you're like, okay, a couple more weeks and we'll be getting out of it, hopefully.
March 1st, my wife's birthday. Shout out. Happy birthday, Jen.
Happy birthday, Jennifer.
Had to do that.
You only turned 21 once, so enjoy it.
That's right. Exactly.
Yes.
So if anybody's out there, if you're listening, you're tuning in right now, make sure if you have any questions, you got to put them down in the comments. Even just say hi. Let us know where you're watching from. We'll give you a shout out on the show. But we're going to go over quite a few things today going across sports. We got golf, basketball, soccer, football. I think that's it. But we got some guys to talk about, and we're going to jump right in to the big story from last week. I think this always happens to you and I, Mark. We go live on Monday around 1, and then we end the show, and then something huge happens right after. And so last Monday, we had Tiger Woods with the bad car accident. I'm sure everyone had a bunch of questions how it happened. Seems like it was just an accident. There was no foul play or anything going on, but he had a compound fracture in that leg. I've actually had a compound fracture in my leg too. But he also had some ankle damage. So they put pins in the ankle, a couple rods in the leg. I don't think it's now you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's a question of if he will ever golf again, but will he ever golf again at that Tiger Woods level? Is he? And I know there was a time when Tiger Woods was untouchable. He was, going to break every record, and then he had some, let's call them off the course issues and stuff, and never fully returned to form. But wins the Masters a couple years ago. Starts looking better. He's had back surgery, and he's been dealing with a lot of injuries related to golf. This one obviously from an accident. But what do you think we can expect when we see him back, and how long? 9 months, a year, year and a half? What are we looking at here?
Yes, I think that's good questions. I think if you look at any reports over the weekend about what actually happened to him, he had two different things. You said that he had the compound fracture, which is when the bone breaks through the skin. He also had, and this is a word that has bothered me since I was in undergrad at Quinnipiac, shout out Bobcats, commutated. Hard word for me to say. I don't know what it is that I can't say that word. COMMINUTED. What is that? That basically means that the fracture for the bone, or the bone, is in more than two segments. So you actually have a couple different pieces of that bone. So that only usually happens with vehicle accidents or very high velocity things like a vehicle accident, a motor vehicle accident. So it's when the bone is broken in more than one place. So you have the bone that's in more than two pieces. So obviously that's going to be, take a little bit more time to heal, probably need a little bit more hardware. So like you said, Nick, they had to put a rod and a pin in his tibia, which is the main bone in your shin. So if you travel that from the kneecap down, that's your tibia, that hard bone on the front. Your fibula, which is the smaller bone on the side, the outside of that lower leg. All right. And then, like you had said, I think you had pointed out that he had to hit some pins and some hardware into his ankle, his foot and his ankle. So a lot of hardware. They also had to do what they would describe as a fasciotomy. Basically, because he had all those injuries in his lower leg, you can get something called traumatic compartment syndrome. Anyone that's had exertional compartment syndrome or any type of compartment syndrome understands that. Very painful. So if you have an injury in your lower leg, the muscles in the lower leg are housed in certain compartments. If those muscles or that injury, if the swelling gets so bad, it can actually put a lot of pressure in those compartments and actually cause damage to the blood flow, damage to nerves, and that is a medical emergency. So you get, sometimes athletes might have an exertional compartment syndrome. So when they're exercising or doing stuff, that pressure increases and they can have a lot of pain with that. And so you have to make sure you're managing that well. So what they do for that is they basically just like slice with the scalpel some of those compartments to allow those muscles to a little bit of breathing room and allow some of that swelling to take some pressure off those compartments so that you have a little bit, obviously less pain and then no further injury with the nerves and the arterial supply. So a lot of things going on. So to answer your question, Nick, I think that he will be able to play golf again. I don't think that's a question. I think the question is like, what level is he going to be able to play at again? I think that Tiger Woods' best golf days are behind him now. He's an athlete that is very well documented. He has done a lot of interviews about how he wishes he could go back and change some of his training routines from when he was younger. So he used to do a lot of training with, Navy SEALs. He did a lot of running in sand, running on the beach. He tore his ACL when he was rehabbing from his ACL. He did like a lot of plyometric or jump training in the sand. So basically, he says all the time how much he kind of destroyed his own body doing that stuff and training with that. So that's a perfect example of what happens when you don't manage your load as an athlete. If you're not managing the load that you put on your body, then you really can decrease the longevity of your career. That's why we look at athletes like Tom Brady, like Lionel Messi, like Cristiano Ronaldo, who have been so good for such a long time, and they're the minority. A lot of athletes have a great couple of years, and then they kind of sputter off after that because their body just can't deal with the same rigors. So Tiger Woods, he had a history of that. If you look at a lot of the interviews, he talks about that all the time, about how he wishes he could go back. So he is a player that already had a lot of trouble with his low back. If anyone's out there that's had surgery on their low back once, a lot of times those athletes or those people have to go in for surgery a second, a third time. There's not a lot of things they can do. Once you're having surgery 3 and 4 times, there's not a lot of stuff in there they can save. They're really just cleaning out the area. So the strain now on his low back is going to be increased because he's got all that hardware in his legs and his ankles. He's going to have decreased mobility now in some of those areas. So the tendency might be to put a little bit more strain on his hips, on his lower back, an area that he already had trouble with before. So he's going to take probably a year before he gets back on the golf course, I had to guess. If I was him, we want to take a little bit more time than what you're probably used to, knowing the fact of where your body was in before the accident happened. So I think you're looking at a year before he gets on the course. And I do not think that he is going to be able to operate at the same level that he was at before this injury. I don't know if he's going to win another Master again after this, because I just don't think he's going to be able to do it. I don't think his body's going to be able to hold up. And then I also question his I don't want to say his mental toughness, but we know all the things in Tiger Woods' history. He's definitely had a really, he was very high, and then he came low, and he had all those injuries with his low back and his knees. He had to work very hard to get back to where he is now. At some point, the mental toll the toll on your emotions, your mental state, takes its toll, and that can be very problematic too. So I wonder if he actually even feels like doing all the work that he's going to need to do to get back. That's going to be my question. So yeah, my thought is that he's not going to be the same level that we're used to seeing him at.
Yeah, it was nice to see all the players wearing red yesterday on the final round of the event in honor of Tiger, and he even tweeted out that it was, stuff like that is going to help him, in his rehab and get back to where he needs to be. So it was a nice little nod to Tiger, and that everybody was pulling for him. Because even these young guys out there that are playing, and these fresh faces, they still want to battle against that guy, and they want to be right there with him on Sunday. Trying to bring it home. So we're wishing Tiger the best. Anything else that comes out about it, we will report on and we'll talk about. But hopefully, he has a quick, healthy recovery, and we see him maybe around this time next year teeing off. All right. So next up, let's go Celtics. They're actually 2-0 on their 4-game homestand, which is great. But before yesterday's game, late scratch Jaylen Brown and his knee. It swelled up. I mean, he's been dealing with some knee tendonitis. We've been keeping an eye on it. We reported on it last week or the week before. Him and Marcus Smart, who's has that calf injury as well. So when you see somebody like this who's plans on playing and then is a late scratch, knee swells up, what does that tell you? What does that indicate? Is this something that's going to just continue to bother him and he's going to miss a game here and there? Or is this something where we could see him sidelined for a little while, like say a week or two or something like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of things come to my mind. I think the first thing is like, again, we're seeing the result of the condensed season. Jaylen Brown is a player who, you can understand Kemba Walker, you can understand Kyrie Irving, who have been some athletes on the Celtics over the years that have had, some issues with some knee issues, some chronic knee issues. You can understand that. We all, if you're old like me and you, Nick, we saw Kemba Walker. I think he went to UConn for 4 years. I think he finished as a senior there. So we saw the games that he played at UConn. If you like college basketball, he played 8 years in Charlotte before he came to the Celtics. So you can look at him and say, hey, here's a guy that's been playing basketball at the highest level for 10 years, 15 years. If you incorporate his college career, there's a lot of wear and tear on there. So obviously there's going to be, in the basketball season, it's a long season, and the playoffs are even another longer season. So you can understand having some time off here and there. I think the most concerning thing with Jaylen Brown is he's only been in the league for, I think this is his 3rd year or 4th year in the league. And now we're having trouble with this knee. Now, hopefully, like the optimistic side of me says, like, hopefully this is just an issue because of the way the season is this year, where there's a lot more back-to-back. There's a lot more, 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row, 4 games in 5 days. They're just they're playing the same amount of games in a condensed schedule. And this is what's happening. So hopefully next year, if everything goes back to normal, they can play their 82-game season over the course of, 6 months as opposed to playing it in 3 months. They're also going to get more of an off-season off. So that's the optimistic side. The non-optimistic side, the pessimistic side of me is like, what are we doing? He's a player who is still in his mid-20s. He shouldn't be having these type of issues. Are they doing a good job managing his load? Are they doing a good job tracking his minutes? Are they making sure he's doing the right things when he's not playing basketball on his off days? Are they doing strengthening? What are they doing? It makes me kind of question what's going on over there again for the 2nd week in a row. And I'm sure people watching this are like, yo, Mark, what the hell do you know? You work outpatient physical therapy. You don't work with elite athletes. And so, yes, I'm going to agree with that. I don't work with elite athletes right now, but from everything I understand, this is part of the conversation, and it can be hard to juggle everything, between the player, the coaching staff, what the player wants, what the team wants, and also the schedule in front of them. So it does give me some pause of concern and concern for the rest of the year, because what's going to happen now through March and into the playoffs? The Celtics are already struggling. They obviously need Jaylen Brown. They need Jason Tatum to be 100%. And so what's going to happen when you continue to have the schedule that you have now, and then the playoffs start, and it's even more games, more intensity in a shorter amount of time? Like, this season's not going to get any better for Jaylen Brown. I think this is going to be something that he has to manage. And I do agree with you, Nick. I wish that they were in a position where they could say, let's sit him. Let's sit him for the last 2 weeks of the season. Let's sit him for the last 3 weeks of the season to make sure that when the playoffs do start, that he's ready to go. But unfortunately, with the way that this year's panning out, I don't think that they have that option, unfortunately. So tough times for the Celtics right now.
Yeah, I hear your concerns. I mean, he's 24 years old. Believe it or not, it is his 5th season.
5th? Wow.
Yeah. He was drafted.
You're having fun, Nick.
Drafted in 2016, and he played the 2016-2017 season. I mean, he's got some games under his belt. Played 78 games his first year, 70 his second, 74. Then last year, being the condensed season, played 57, and he's up to 31 games this year. But for a 24-year-old, I mean, you have to question if it's, the medical staff, or if it's just a culmination of these condensed seasons where they're playing more games right on top of each other. There's less time to rest. And like you said, they don't have the luxury right now of sitting one of their best players because of where they are. Last time we talked, I think they were 9th in the East, so like that's 1 game out of the playoffs. Excuse me, not 1 game, 1 position out of the playoffs. So, we'll keep an eye on that. Like I said, they've been dealing with some injuries between him and Marcus Smart. So let's hope, throw Tatum on there when he missed some time with COVID and, was complaining coming back from that. So we'll keep an eye on it and we'll report on it again. Speaking of mismanaging injuries, load management, we talked about it last week. We talked about Gerard Piqué going up against Mbappe and getting toasted, having to be pulled from the game. He tore his ACL in November. It's March. As optimistic as I am about spring and summer being right around the corner, November wasn't that long ago, and he hobbled off the pitch.
Very good, Nick.
Yes,
very nice, bro.
There you go. You like that? The floor is yours, Mark. What is Barcelona doing? Why is he out?
Dude, so I'm watching the game over the weekend. You know, I'm a big soccer head. Much to my wife's chagrin, more soccer on the TV. I have a soccer game on the TV. I got a soccer game on my phone. You know, she hates it, but you know, she married me. I was like this when she met me. Whatever. What are you gonna do? And I'm screaming at my phone. I'm like, what are we doing? So Gerard Piqué, he played, like you said, he tore his ACL in November. He played the Champions League game, didn't look so good, came off the field, got substituted off. I thought they were going to probably rest him for a few weeks, get him right, and then let him come back out. Surprising to see him on the starting lineup, but okay, let's do this. Let's see what's going on. The competition's not as high as it was when he played, you know, last week. And you could tell in the second, so he played the first half. He looked decent. You could tell, though, it looked like his knee might have stiffened up on him during halftime. He just didn't look comfortable in the second half. He looked a little tentative on it. It looked like his knee was affecting him. He was thinking about it. It looked like to me he was thinking about his knee. And when you have when you're an athlete, you can ask any athlete. The one thing they don't want to do is think, right? They want to be very instinctual. They want to trust their body. They want to do what they want to do and not think about how their knees feeling, their foot feeling, their shoulders feeling. Once they start thinking about those things, then you know their performance goes down the drain. So you could tell that he was a little ginger on it. They sub him off, Nick, and I swear to God, he's limping off the field, and I'm yelling at my phone, like, what are we doing, Barcelona? Excuse me, let me pronounce that right. What are we doing, Barcelona? What are we doing here? You guys are like one of the best teams, the best clubs in all of Europe, European soccer. Everyone loves Barcelona. What are we doing? And I think this is a good example of when, you know, you have a lot of pressure. The coaching staff's got a lot of pressure to win now. The player has a lot of pressure on him to perform and to be back in the lineup and help his team win. You know, you even have people advertising, marketers, they want their best players on the field. And so, like, in a vacuum, when you look at this and you look at all the facts, if you didn't have the name of the player or the name of the team that he played for, you look at the facts and say, no, this is easy. This guy's not playing. He's not ready yet. But then when you take into account all those other factors, all the money that goes into it, these are the decisions that get made. And this is sometimes, unfortunately, what happens to athletes. And sometimes they do, maybe, I don't know all the story. Maybe he wants to play. Maybe the coaching staff is pushing him to play. I don't really know. But I just hope that he's not going to do something, you know, if he re-tears that ACL and re-injures that knee, he's looking at a long road back and he might not be able to come back to play. So you just hope that they're being smart about what they're asking him to do. They have a Champions League game, I believe, coming up either this week or next week. So that'll up the amount of games they have during the week. So we'll have to wait and see if he's going to be in the lineup. But just another case of what are we doing, Nick? What are we doing? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Nick.
This will have to be a segment that we have every week, just called "What Are We Doing?" And I just go through all these teams that are mismanaging their players' injuries or their load management.
Nick, just hire me. Just hire me. I can be a consultant, right? I can continue to work for Performance and do consulting for Barcelona on the weekends. I don't understand what they're waiting for.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, you can just zoom in and be like, yeah, maybe you should sit him for a few more weeks. That's it. That's all you need to do. You'll be good. So Dr. Mark for Hire, consulting firm. If you have any questions about if you should or should not play your player yet,
I like it.
Yeah, I'll consult Dr. Mark. All right. We haven't really talked about him, but some news came up in the past couple of weeks about Julian Edelman. His knee, he's got bone on bone. He says he's not done yet. I think we all know that his best days are behind him, especially because he doesn't have Tom Brady throwing to him. But his body, I mean, he's a smaller guy. He's taken a beating in his career. What can we expect from Julian Edelman this year if he does come back? Is it close to the end, let's say, with that bone on bone on the knee? I mean, we just had Pedroia retired. Edelman's 35, and for an undersized wide receiver, that's getting up there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to come out and say I think he's done. I don't know. I mean, I think he can make the team. I think, unfortunately, if you're a Patriots fan, a hobbled 35-year-old Julian Edelman is still your best wide receiver. And I think that's a problem, right? If you're a Patriots fan,
problem.
I think that he's done. I mean, the report came out I think it was maybe a month ago, that his knees were basically bone on bone. You know, when you get a situation like that, you know, that's exactly what Dustin Pedroia had. Dustin Pedroia tried several different procedures for him. Nothing really kind of stuck. Then you look at a football player who I would say, yes, they're only playing once a week, but the forces they're exerting during that one game are way higher than what a baseball player might do, especially when you take into account that you are a wide receiver. And we know what makes Julian Edelman so effective, or what's made him so effective in his career, is his ability to get in and out of his routes, his ability to stop, to decelerate, accelerate again, his quickness, that type of thing. So stop and go. That puts a lot more strain on the knee joint itself too. So I just don't. He could make the team. Listen, he could make the team. He might be able to contribute, but I don't think he's going to have a very good year. I'm certainly not going to look for him in my next fantasy football draft. I'm not going to even bother picking him up, because I just don't think he's going to be able to produce too much this year, unfortunately, for all of us.
Yeah, I think it depends on who's throwing to him. I mean, it seems like the team's trying to get younger. They might just sign a quarterback to bridge them until they draft someone. Even if they draft someone this year, I know I've heard people out there saying, go out and get Fitzpatrick for a year or two. So I've heard some people say that Belichick is leaning towards bringing Cam Newton back. But yeah, I don't have high expectations for Edelman if he does come back. And I think knowing that they probably can't win right now doesn't help the situation. So we'll have to wait and see. I can't imagine he'd be worth all that much if they tried to move him either.
Yeah,
I was trying to look up his contract while you were talking, but
he's got 1 year left. I think this next year is his last year left on his contract.
Yeah. So I don't know how. Like I said, maybe a 4th rounder for him or something like that. If he can show, he needs to show that he's got something left in the tank first. I'm sure he'd love to go and play with Tom Brady, but who would he replace down there? I mean, probably they probably have 5 wide receivers that are probably playing at a better level than he can right now at this point in his career.
Yeah.
All right. Last but not least, let's talk about Draymond Green. Went up for a rebound, came down on someone's ankle, rolled it, looked pretty bad. He had to leave the game with an ankle sprain. You expecting him to miss a lot of time?
It looked like a pretty standard, like inversion ankle sprain, as we call it in the biz. So that's basically when your ankle just kind of rolls in. You get a lot of the structures on the front and lateral, the outside part of that ankle will get stretched. He was able to walk off the court, but obviously had a real bad limp. So I would probably say someone like that, 4 to 6 weeks, is usually where people stand. Sometimes on a more mild ankle sprain, 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes on a more severe one, 6 to 8 weeks. But a large majority of them would be 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm not sure where Golden State right now stands in the playoff picture. I don't have the standings in front of me, but 4 to 6 weeks would be right about the start of playoffs. I think is when he should be coming back or getting ready to kind of come back around that time. So I think he's going to probably be out for most of March, unless we get some information the next couple of days about it being very, very mild. And I would expect him to be out for the next at least 4 weeks minimum. Yeah,
I mean, with Klay Thompson, being out again for this entire season and stuff, I really feel like it's like you got the Nets and the Lakers, and I feel like that's probably who you're going to see in the finals. And I'd be surprised if you see anything else, whether Draymond Green was healthy or not. I think the Warriors, they could compete if they had, Klay Thompson and Curry and Green, but it's not doesn't seem like it's gonna be that way. So we'll have to wait and see. Well, Mark, that's all I have for you today. Remember out there, if you're watching and you have questions about any of your favorite players, somebody that's on your fantasy team, if you're just getting ready for next fantasy football season and you want to know what the offseason is going to look like for some of these guys who are nursing injuries or rehabbing from a surgery, you got to put them in the questions below, and Dr. Mark and I will answer them. If we can't do it live because you couldn't join us live, still put them in the comments, and we'll answer them next Monday. We'll be
fantasy hockey. There's fantasy hockey, Nick. Fantasy baseball. Another sign of nice weather. Baseball's going to start. Fantasy soccer. If you got English Premier League fantasy, you guys drop me your lines. Let us know.
Let's go. Yeah. Fantasy everything.
We get 15% of the winnings, right, Nick? 15% of the winnings.
Yeah. Well, if you can prove that what we said helped you win, or if we can prove it. Yeah. I just do fantasy football, but I got buddies who do fantasy baseball, fantasy basketball, hockey, everything. I just, I only can do football because it's like the once a week, baseball, it just seems like such a marathon. I know, one of my wife's cousins, he does a fantasy baseball podcast. He loves it. So it's crazy. It's crazy. I know people are
Who has that kind of time? Does he have a job and kids? Who has that kind of time to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know I don't, but hey, more power to you out there if you're doing it, and that's what we're here for, to help you guys win. Everybody out there, have a happy, healthy, safe week. It is March. Spring is almost here. The sun is shining a little more every day, and that brings me to our Brighter Days Through Better Movement every Thursday, 1 o'clock live, performanceptri.com/live, or follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or go to that website to watch us live. But we're going to talk about what you can do to get moving this spring as we move one step closer to the summer solstice, when we get to the longest day of the year and we have a party because we got lots of sunlight. So join us every Thursday at 1. What's up, Mark?
Who's the guest host this week? Who's hosting with Michelle this week?
This week we have Dr. Amy Sullivan.
Ah, very nice.
They're going to talk about sleep. They're going to talk about some other things, but sleep is going to be one of the main things that they talk about.
I think Amy's a fellow Quinnipiac grad, right? So, of course, she knows what she's talking about, clearly. If it was a URI grad, maybe not, but Quinnipiac, we know. We're good with that. Shout out Brian. Brian, that's a shot at you.
Love it. Actually, boom, here we go. There she is.
Nice.
There she is. We've got Dr. Amy Sullivan. They're going to talk about eating, sleeping, and walking. Oh, my. And you could win a water pillow, a MediFlow water pillow, and a PP2 Nike full zip fleece. So you're going to have to join us to try to win. All right, Mark, thank you for joining us. Everyone out there, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.